Welcome, come on in. Today's video is about depression and anxiety and how come it comes down to one thing, and how come depression is preceded by anxiety and not the other way around, and how does depression and anxiety rob us of a successful life. So this video is going to talk about what depression and anxiety is, how we get it, how we change it. But first let me answer some of the questions I raised at the beginning about a successful life. If you look back at your life and remember the last experience you hold dear to your heart, remember, when you think back on it, you break out with a smile, it makes you happy. I would imagine it involves an interaction with someone, not something. If it doesn't, then this video is for you. The quality of those connections are what defines the quality of our lives. But what happens if we lose those connections, become isolated and alone? And the loss of connection, it starts with the most important relationship you have. You know the one with you. No, not the self that's shaped by your culture, your upbringing, your peers, social media, TV, not the institutions telling us how to live. Yes, the you who is engaging with me right now. I see you. On a scale of 1 to 10, how well are you connected with who you are? Not just the parts you like, all of it. 1 is terrible, I don't have any idea who I am. 10 is great, I love every bit of me, makes me smile just to think about the depth of me. 22 years ago, I was mostly a 1. Now I'm mostly a 10. This video will show you how to tip the scales and send depression and anxiety packing. Over 2 decades ago, I had an experience that left me with a life-threatening disease, broke and completely lost. Worst of all, I turned into a person that I despised and I didn't want to connect with. Now, I love what I do. I love my life. I love who I have become. I live in one of the most amazing places in the world, Queenstown, New Zealand, with the best relationships ever, especially with me. I have lots of life experience of making mistakes, and each mistake has taught me a lesson. These have allowed me to be the best of me, with an inbuilt happiness and hope for the world we live in. So let's start with some fun facts. 1 in 7 people will experience depression before they are 24 years old. 1 in 8 men will experience depression. 1 in 5 women will experience depression. That's a whole different video on why. 1 in 5 people with depression or anxiety will experience both at the same time. These stats are from New Zealand. Your country will differ, some worse, some better. Depression is regarded as a mental state characterised by pessimistic sense of inadequacy and despondent lack of activity. That's even worse than anxiety, isn't it? And I don't think that's useful, do you? But the important part is mental state. Mental states can change. Even ingrained ones we think are impossible to, the negative ones that we keep on saying, oh, that's just who I am, resigned to living life with an aspect of ourselves that isn't what we want. We accept its limitations and just carry on. Johann Hari wrote a book on depression called Lost Connections. It's about his journey with depression, and it's a great read, I recommend it. And he talked about 9 causes of depression. Almost all are a loss of connection. Here's the list. What's the relationship with anxiety? You know how anxiety creeps in, you start to worry about the what ifs, what could happen, what has happened. We start a process of disconnection. It's subtle, but it takes us away from being present. the only place you can actually make life great. It's always about what we are doing now. This is what creates our future and determines our past. So the best place to live is right now, not disconnected from it. So anxiety and depression are linked by a lack of connection. And anxiety requires a high level of energy by the organ in our head, the brain. It tries to resolve the unresolvable. And in doing that, we become energy depleted, tired, less resourced, and depression gets a hold. And then you just become really down and tired. Now, if you want to know more about anxiety, look at my anxiety relief video. I'll do a link at the end. So, next. So how does the medical profession treat depression? Well, let's look at the DSM, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. It's a big, thick book. It's the Bible for a GP. The symptoms of depression are depressed mood, loss of interest, pleasure, insomnia, etc., etc. Now, if the GP is doing their job, then they will look for biological, psychological and social factors. For instance, is there a chemical imbalance? What's your diet like? What's your lifestyle like? And they will determine your level of depression. So is it mild, moderate, severe? Depending on what they come up with, they may give you a medication. They may prescribe a medication for you. Or they may send you to a therapist, like me. Now, what about grief? And I bring up grief because it's an important point with depression. When we suffer a significant loss and we're in grief, depression is regarded as normal. You go through a period of feeling down as you're trying to deal with all these feelings. And so it's justified because you've had something quite significant happen. If you want to know more about grief, I do a video on grief counselling, and there's a link at the end of this video. So the point is that a significant loss is justified as you move through this grief, which has components of depression and sadness, etc., etc. So let me give you two examples from my life of being depressed. The first one is when I was a heroin addict, and I knew that I had to stop. I knew that it was going to kill me, and I went through, I made a decision at a point in my life where I just stopped. And I went what they call cold turkey. And I can remember how I felt. And it was almost like the colour had gone out of the world. It was just like every day was grey. And it felt horrible, but it also felt sort of okay, because I knew it was a response to a withdrawal from a drug. So I knew that that wouldn't last. I knew if I just hung in there, I had hope, I would be okay. And I was. I had good support around me, and I felt loved, and I moved through that, never touched it again. The other one was when I found out that I had hepatitis C as a consequence of using a needle with heroin. And before they had the new drugs that basically get rid of it, they had a thing called interferon and something else, and very low rate of success, and it was quite invasive to the body and quite invasive to how I felt. And very quickly I got depressed. I didn't even realise I was depressed. I just was really angry that I was struggling with trying to deal with what was going on inside me. And the GP did the test and said, we'll put you on citalopram. And that helped smooth out my emotions. I didn't particularly like it because it took away the high of the joy, but it also took away the really low. And I was able to cope. And for the next year and a half, I was on that until I weaned myself off. Again, it was a response to something that had happened in my life. So I had hope, and I knew it wasn't something that wasn't going to end. But what if you don't? What if you don't think it's going to end? So let's do another quick test. What are your current connections like? So here's a list of connections. Your environment. What do you have around you that's great? Access to nature, to peaceful places, the things that make you feel good. Nice places you can go for a walk. How's your diet? Your access to healthy food that uplifts you? Clean, fresh water, or is it just McDonald's and fizzy drinks? What about the job you do? Do you love the job you do? Is it something that's rewarding and gives you a sense of satisfaction, not just money? What about the connections with the people you work with, the environment you work in? Does it feel safe? Does it feel you have mates at work, friends that you can talk to? What about your family life, those nearest and dearest? Is it good connections, or is there some real struggles in that space? So where are your lost connections? I think from doing that list you get an idea of how much your connections are important to how you're feeling in the world and whether you feel depressed or not. If some of these have been going on for a long time, then it just becomes sort of normalised, because society normalises disconnection. We can go and do things to stay disconnected. We can throw ourselves into work, we can throw ourselves into anything that takes us away from being what's really going on inside us. We can get medication. So disconnection is a normal state. I'm talking predominantly about the Western world. So what gets me is when someone takes their own life. People often say they didn't see it coming. Disconnection is so normalised we fail to see that it's getting worse and someone is potentially going to try and take away the pain, the suffering and the lack of hope by taking their life. And there's subtle shifts are missed and the life is lost. If you're having suicidal thoughts now, talk with someone, find a person who will get you. Often this is a complete stranger. There's always local support lines, free services, places you can go, reach out. You are okay and you are worth it. You may not be able to see that now, but with talking with someone, you get more choices. With choice comes hope, and with hope comes change and potential. Please, please, no person is not worth it. I see the people who are left behind who believed in you. Yet survival in an ever disconnected world, with global suffering, war, injustices, of course we disconnect. Sometimes it's overwhelming, it's just too much, it's too hard. We see so much that we never used to see. We were our own little bubbles. We didn't have to see the whole world suffer. We didn't have to see everything that's happening. We didn't have social media that showed everyone who's got more than you. All these things that just end up creating disconnection. And the problem with the disconnection is that robs us of transformation, an opportunity to discover and integrate a part of us. And the connection with ourselves is what integrity is, how well we can connect with all parts of ourselves and the experiences in life that happen that give us an opportunity to find more of ourselves. That disconnection robs us of happiness, being in the moment in our body, being present. And how we feel determines our okayness in the world. When we can't trust our feelings, our life barometer is broken. Depression and anxiety are learned responses, not something we naturally do. So to give you an example, when I was writing out the script for this video, I was in a cafe. It was almost empty. There were two women with their children. And the children were excited, happy, playful, curious. One of them came over and wanted to know what I was doing. They're only very young. They went from smiling to being upset and complaining as they didn't get what they wanted. But there was no anxiety, there was no depression. On the other hand, the parents were anxious. They're anxious about them getting out of control. They were anxious about what might happen if something went wrong. The beginnings of depression. Now, here's an interesting point for you. Medication. Remember I said you can go to a GP and get medication? There was some research done around depression in providing medication and how effective it was. And it had control groups. One control group got something that was supposed to treat depression. Another control group got something that was amazing new drug, and it was going to get rid of depression, and it was really effective, and you're part of the trial. But what they actually got was just a sugar pill, a placebo. And then the third group was the group that just got nothing. Now, the results of that research showed that 25% of those people just got better naturally, got better from their depression naturally. 25% got better because they took that drug, the first one. 50% got better because they got the wonder drug. Now that wonder drug is a sugar pill. But because they believed that they were going to get better, because they had something that was going to help them do that, they did. The best drug for fixing you is you. So what I'm going to do now is give you the bonus. The bonus is, well, what's a simple way to reconnect with yourself? How do you find a way to be with how you feel? That's about bringing yourself into your body. And to do that, I'm going to use a part of a process that's called, the nickname is SRI, which is short for somatic respiratory integration. And what it's doing is taking breath, mindfulness, and body movement to help you connect with yourself. It's pretty simple to do, however, it can create really strong responses because you suddenly connect with a deep feeling. That's okay. It's think of it as a bit like crying. When something overwhelms you and you just can't stop crying, all you do is go with it until it passes. I ask you to do the same thing here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to do it sitting in the chair with my feet flat on the ground. I'm trying to calm myself. I'm trying to slow my breathing down. And I'm going to use my hands. And I'm going to find the place of unease in my body. And I'm going to use my palm, one palm on top of the other like that. And I'm going to start in my heart space. I'm going to breathe into here. So I'm breathing into where my heart is. And I'm focusing my thoughts into where my hands are, bringing the breath into there and then breathing out. That's the three components. Breath, hand movement, and focused awareness, because your breath wants to be in here, so you're really paying attention to what's in here. So what I'm trying to do is isolate. I feel quite good in here. I can feel that I feel quite calm. The next one is at the bottom of your sternum, right at that tip here. Exactly the same thing. I feel a little bit unsure. I'm doing this video, so it's only my second one. Now I've acknowledged how I feel, and I feel more confident. I feel more connected. The third one, easy one, on your belly button. It's interesting what came up for me then is that I feel a little bit overweight in my belly. I put on weight, I've been on a holiday. So that exercise, get time with it, play with it. If some place feels unsafe, don't stay on it. Move on to a place that you feel safe. But the point is it's a really quick way to just connect with your body, to be more connected with how you feel, with your life barometer, and to feel better. And it's not about trying to fix anything, it's just starting to be with yourself again. So, in my work I use the ACT process. I call it ACT because it stands for Awareness, Connection, Transformation. What we've just done is a process where increased awareness, there's something going on with me, connection with it, and in doing that, transformation happens automatically. That's to me how life works. What's next? If you have a look in the description, there's links to good resources and other things around depression and anxiety. Leave a comment, ask a question, see what comes back. And I'm really glad that you stayed to the end. You didn't have to, and I appreciate it. And, oh, it'd be nice if you subscribe. That would be really cool. Take care.